let us move right along to our next presenter. I'm very pleased to introduce our first guest presenter, Roger Lanctot from Strategy Analytics. As many of you know, automotive safety is probably the market that is developing fastest in terms of going to volume production for vision technology. And Roger, of all the people I've spoken to about this, Roger is the most knowledgeable about what's happening, who's participating, what direction things are going in. Again, want to thank Roger for making the trip out to share his perspective with us.
Okay, so Jeff is actually complimenting my colleague, Ian Riches, who's really the safety expert. I'm more of a connected car guy, but I'm going to try to fake it for you today because I asked Ian to come here, but I don't know whether it was because he was in the UK or on vacation this week, but he said I had to come, which is no problem for me because I have a lot of good friends out here I could come and see, so I came out a day early. Always happy to share insights with a new group of people. I don't think I know anybody here aside from Danny in the back of the room. So let me make sure I know how to advance my slides here. I'm just clicking. Okay, I'm good. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to share a lot of data here. In fact, Ian might be upset with me by the time he sees the video, but you benefit handsomely from my largesse today. So I'm going to share a lot of our market sizing and segmentation information about safety systems coming into cars. It's a great story, by the way, because hopefully we're saving lives and mitigating driver distraction. So it's something I really like to talk about. I will be talking about key driving applications that are driving growth. I'll be talking about the impact and role of the connected car, and I'll be talking about some of the architectural implications. Some of the things I'm talking about may be completely irrelevant to things that you're doing. I don't know, but I'm going to try to give you the context for what's happening in the automotive market. And I am sorry I wasn't at the event yesterday, because I would have liked to have seen some of the presentations, Google in particular, because I will be talking about autonomous cars. In the automotive market, we're looking at commoditization of hardware. So the differentiation is coming from HMI, so the user interfaces in the car, software, services, and content delivery platforms. So hardware is under a lot of pressure. We're getting changing ownership models, so we're getting car sharing, and we're getting car makers being a little bit more conscious of multiple drivers of the same car. And of course, you've heard about usage-based insurance. Market maturity, so the volume and growth is coming from the developing world. Infotainment and safety are most popular together in the developed markets, but the opportunities lie in the developing world. That's where all the growth is, China. Everybody's shifting development activity to China. That's where cars are selling. Increasingly, that's where cars are being made. Safety and device integration, however, are dominant in the developing markets because the wireless networks are just not there to support telematics, connected cars, the more advanced solutions that we're getting in the Western world with LTE connectivity coming to cars. We're seeing more and more modularity and upgradability coming to cars. I was visiting Cloud Car yesterday, so at CES they were showing a cartridge that would have all the upgradable, rapidly changing technology in the car that you would swap out. I've seen a similar concept from Cybercom in Sweden. I'm not sure too many car companies are eager to have a dockable cartridge type device in the car, but we are wrestling with a vehicle, a device that's going to be around for 12 years. So this is the challenge that these companies are trying to address and overcome. We are going to have onboard commerce in the car, gesture-based multimodal interfaces, thought control with biometrics, and driver monitoring. That's the latest. So I was just in Canberra, Australia, doing an all-day consulting session with Seeing Machines. And they have plenty of competition in the space. So what's the long-term outlook for electronic system demand? So this is where I wanted to paint the picture from a regional perspective. Just to share this data with you, you can see China. There certainly is size already in NAFTA and Western Europe and China, but the growth is coming from the emerging markets. I just want to add that slide in there just so you can get the bigger picture. Fragmentation versus convergence in the automotive market. So multiple OSs going to an interoperable kind of an environment. Multiple modules in the car, perhaps going to a single kind of a vehicle gateway in the vehicle. Multiple handset connectivity propositions. So you've probably heard about CarPlay. You'll soon be hearing about Google's solution. Maybe you've heard about MirrorLink. But automakers will ultimately pull that all together into a proprietary solution. And by proprietary, I'm talking about things like Ford Sync, Chevy MyLink, those kinds of systems, because the car makers will want to have the smartphone connected to the car and be able to tap into the CAN bus, and they probably won't want Google and Apple tapping into the vehicle CAN bus. Multiple visions for monetization, so customer relationship management, safety as a grounded value proposition, and an all-purpose e-com platform in the car. So all kinds of opportunities to make ad hoc purchases, et cetera. And yeah, okay, some car makers want to put an app store in the car, which I think is patently absurd. And I was very happy to see GM delayed their app shop launch by a year and maybe indefinitely, if you ask me. We're seeing split SIMs coming into the car. So the SIM that's in there to support automatic crash notification or calling the call center will be able to have a separate diagnostic feed to the car maker and another tie, in the case of OnStar with their latest LTE announcement, to allow you to add your car to your wireless plan if you have AT&T. Someday we'll get to the point where it could be any carrier, but we're not there quite yet. Virtual machines and head units and processors, so sharing of processor resources for the instrument cluster and the center stack, and ultimately, I think, infotainment and safety systems come together today. You know, the accepted wisdom in the automotive industry is these two application areas have to be firewalled, safety over here, infotainment over there, but increasingly they're sharing resources. I believe they will converge. Firmware over-the-air updates, so we're adding value to the car after the sale. Tesla has shown us all how to do that. And again, this question of hardware upgradability, maybe, I'm not sure everybody's on board with that one. So I wanted to make a point. So as I said, it's a great subject to talk about. We need to save lives. We're killing 1.25 million people every year on the roads, and it's on a trajectory to 2 million, okay? In this country, as many of you already know, we kill 35,000 a year, and thankfully Brazil moved ahead of us, so we're fourth in the world. So that's good news. But safety. People actually want safety. They're not as interested in the infotainment stuff. Safety sells, it's in the television advertising, and it's revealed in our surveys, and that's why I wanted to share this with you briefly. So it's a great thing. People want it, and regulators love it, and again, we're saving lives. And if you look at where infotainment falls, it's down at the bottom. Now, I won't deny that once the customer gets into the dealer showroom, that they like to see a big display in the car doing shiny, things and stuff moving around and higher resolution displays, and that's cool. That may be a checkoff for a lot of people. But safety sells cars. That's a core value proposition. And if you look at consumer interest in ADAS features versus connected services, Twitter, Facebook, fuel prices, ADAS wins every time, no matter what region of the world you're looking at. So, again, it's a great story. So, a mild advertisement for strategy analytics, just to give you an idea of the scope of the research work that we do. We look at distance warning, lane departure warning, blind spot monitoring, park assist, night vision, head-up displays, adaptive front lighting, driver drowsiness. These are all the areas that we cover. We look at it by unit and revenue, split by region, vehicle type, and automaker. And we also then look at all the supporting semiconductor technology behind that. And again, we forecast for all of the whole value proposition. So the sensors, cameras are just one of the sensors that we're covering. And you can see the range of semiconductors that we're covering. Again, Ian could speak to all of this in much more detail. Please don't ask me about op-amp, okay? Or VREG, okay? Can we agree on that one? All right, good. Okay, key applications. Self-parking, surround view, adaptive cruise control, lane departure warning, distance alert. These are all proliferating across a broad range of cars, but autonomous driving is the big headline, which is why I'm sorry I didn't see the event yesterday and the presentation to get an update there. But why is ADAS growing so fast? Governments are continuing to push for greater safety. You have a strong push from Euro NCAP. So one of the challenges that the regulators have is we've moved into this area of not just surviving collisions with airbags and such, and nice bumpers and what have you. Now we want to prevent the accident altogether. So this is a philosophical change that went in place at least 5 years ago. But what the regulators are trying to do is prove a negative, prove that that technology being there saved a life, caused something not to happen. So what you have now is sort of incentives, ratings, 5-star ratings, et cetera, and that's what all the car makers want. They want those 5-star ratings, and consumers are looking for those 5-star safety ratings, and that's how they're sort of rewarding. And there are challenges right now. So in the UK, the insurance industry, I believe, is rewarding drivers, I think, on the rating program for automatic emergency braking systems in cars. But some of the bodies that are associated with the testing and are calling for the government to actually give an incentive, like €100 for the customer if he buys a car with automatic emergency braking. And you saw a reference in the earlier slide to the IIHS coming out with their endorsement of automatic emergency braking. So the mantra is, we're going to avoid collisions, and cameras are a great asset for doing just that. Automakers need new features, consumer interest is growing, prices are coming down. So these systems are no longer in the thousands of dollars, they're in the hundreds of dollars range. So, and these are slides from a presentation, some of them from a presentation that was about autonomous driving. So autonomous driving is driving a lot of the development activity. It is the inspiration now. So it's not just avoiding collision, it is how do we avoid driving. So when will driverless cars be mainstream? Will a car that I can tell where to go and then snooze in the back seat to my destination have a significant market share by 2020? No. Will the next car that I purchase offer a significantly greater degree of autonomy than my current one? Yes. So what am I driving at? It's a continuum. It's an evolution. So cars today are already capable of taking over driving, say on a highway or certainly for parking. So you're getting, so in low speed circumstances or in high speed, very predictable circumstances, automatic driving, autonomous driving, driving assistance is already taking over. But to get to full autonomy, it's not going to be a sudden jump. It's going to be an evolution. We're well along the way on this path. These are the available technologies that we look at and that are enabling this proposition. And again, note, cameras feature prominently in these applications. So we're going from multifunction camera, that's important, remember that, shifting into a phase right now where we're at collision mitigation with sensor fusion. And that's also a workload management proposition. Some of you are probably aware of Volvo with their ADAS application, which will turn off different systems in the car under certain driving conditions because the car is contextually aware. You're coming to a hairpin turn, you might be going too fast, it's raining, you might turn off the radio or take the phone away, which takes us ultimately to an ADAS domain control of all these features to enhance the safety of the driving experience and to enhance the contextual awareness. But cameras offer the best growth prospects of all of these categories, so huge growth opportunities. That doesn't mean these other technologies don't play a role, but it's the best combination of growth and volume. And my colleague says ultrasonic sensors are not included here, but there's still some growth there. But cameras are just off the charts in terms of growth. So parking applications are the largest for automotive cameras. The caveat is they're already widely fitted. Okay, so I'm not sure how much growth opportunity there is in parking cameras, but there are 100 million cameras forecast to be fitted to light vehicles in 2020. Parking cameras dominate demand. They have the lowest requirements for camera specification and processing power. But the key thing, again, is this multiple use for that camera data in the car. NAFTA-produced vehicles are driving camera demand. So, part of this is driven by the backup camera mandate in the US. So, NHTSA doesn't want you looking at displays in the car or looking at your phone when you're driving, unless you're driving backwards. Then they want you to look at the display in the car. Okay. That's the only humor I have today for safety systems. Okay, I took my best shot. Okay. Japanese penetration did lead market due to the high prevalence of navigation and thus screens in cars. The one thing the backup camera mandate will give us is screens in cars. And once you have that screen, you're going to start getting higher and higher resolution, you're going to need a more powerful processor, and you're going to want to do other things with that screen in the car. So that's part of where that convergence is going to come in. You're going to want to use that screen for safety. You're going to want to use that screen for infotainment, for communicating with the driver, communicating emergency information, or entertainment. Current NCAP rules in Europe forecast to drive adoption of cameras for forward-looking, high-value applications. So again, this is a regional perspective. So it does vary region by region. We dig down into this with a significant amount of detail. And there's a very significant electronics implication behind cameras. So there's 73 million camera ECUs in 2020. So my colleague spent a good deal of his time looking at the relationship between the number of cameras and the number of ECUs required to control them and process the data. And the forecast impacted by the number of applications per camera. Almost half of the ECU market in 2012 will remain relatively low-end reversing cameras. But increasingly, as I said, it's about autonomy, it's about collision avoidance. And I have to apologize, I don't have a forecast for the cameras in the car. But one thing that will come with autonomy is the need to monitor the driver, because you're going to need to make sure he's paying attention or she paying attention and can take over control of the vehicle under appropriate circumstances. And that's why companies like Seeing Machines are getting into this space. So right now, a lot of those companies are primarily focused in fleet applications and commercial vehicles, but that will come into the consumer space, and those cameras could be anywhere. Seeing Machines is talking about putting them on the steering wheel, but they could be in the headliner, they could be anywhere in the car. ADAS is one of the fastest auto electronics growth areas, so the two key areas for electronics growth in the car are HEVs and EVs, and ADAS, the key difference being that the uncertainty is on the downside for EVs and HEVs, it's on the upside for ADAS because of the anticipation of additional mandates driving further adoption. Again, when you look at the hundreds of thousands of people being killed in emerging markets where most of the growth is coming for the automotive industry, you can see that demand is there for safety systems, for these safety solutions, and for these governments to mandate adoption of these systems. Adaptive front lighting and parking assist are seeing relatively weak growth. Again, as I said, parking assist is already widely deployed, widely adopted in the marketplace. eCall is a reference to automatic crash notification, so it is another high growth area. And some of these high growth areas are growing off of a very small base. So head-up displays obviously is growing from a small base. So I wanted to give you a sense of where the volume in the market is coming from to set up the next slide. So as you see, the non-premium segment is the lion's share of the market, but growth is coming from premium and super premium. Most of the growth is coming from premium and super premium. There is growth in economy, but it's a tiny segment of the market. And so that translates into the safety systems as non-premium and premium being big growth areas for safety systems. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit. I'm sure you've heard of this company, Mobileye. And the big story last week was the rumor of their IPO filing, which could hit the market by July. And they are the 900-pound gorilla in the automotive space. So they have 355 systems deployed, 9 Tier 1 partners, 21 OEMs to NVIDIA's 20, 150 car models, with systems deployed. And to give you a sense of that, so we maintain a global database of all the safety systems in cars, and this is what that database looks like. So you can see a wide range of applications, driver attention, distance alert, lane departure warning, driver attention, etc. Hundreds of cars already deployed with Mobileye technology. So I just wanted to emphasize that in the automotive industry right now, these guys are, I don't want to say the only game in town, but they're a very dominant player, and it's quite frustrating to the car companies. They are desperately seeking alternatives. They are begging and pleading with their suppliers to please, we're looking for somebody else. We feel overly committed to Mobileye. Now, I don't know if they feel that the Mobileye solution is inferior, or they just don't like doing business with them, or it's too expensive. But what I'm saying is, if you've got something, The industry is very interested. There is not a car company out there that is not interested in an alternative to Mobileye. And there are alternatives to Mobileye. There are companies working on solutions. I'm not going to go into details about these organizations, but I just wanted to highlight a few of them with these slides. Some of, well, Cognitive is here. And some of the other companies named here may be here. So the competitive landscape. Most of the large engineering service providers are now active in this space or are looking at moving into it, many spanning both software and hardware. And on the hardware side, then the key automotive image chip companies, apart from Mobileye, are OmniVision and Aptina. There's a real fight taking place on the image processing side with companies such as NVIDIA and Qualcomm positioning their consumer-oriented GPU parts at this application, and traditional auto suppliers such as Freescale are starting to fight back and get in the game. So it's a hotbed of market activity because there's so much growth, because there's so much activity. These people are so concerned about saving lives. We want to save lives. It's a good thing. And there are even more companies, and probably even more. I probably haven't captured the landscape, but I did want to give you a sense of the breadth of competitive activity going on. So, autonomous adoption scenarios. Three adoption scenarios. One is building blocks in place, fully autonomous, or fully autonomous optimistic, and that's our view of things. And if you want to dig into that a little bit more, you can talk to my colleague Ian. But that's kind of his perspective, and there are some significant philosophical issues still around this. And I'm not even going to get into liability. Every time I go to a telematics event, the question of liability comes up. So, and even the United Nations is interested in this. I was talking with this woman from the UNECE in Europe, and she was saying, we have to sort out the liability issues. And I said, the horse is out of the barn, with all due respect. Cars are already operating to some extent somewhere in the world on their own. It's a done deal. So the way I look at it, this is sorted. It's not a problem. But nevertheless, you go to an insurance telematics event, comes up every time, liability. We have a problem with liability. So, but there's another issue, which is how do consumers feel about this? And 2 or 3 years ago, Harman did some man on the street interviews, and what I was struck by was young people were saying, I want to get in my car and have it take me to where I want to go so I can get other stuff done. So and this was 3 years ago. To me, it really struck me like it's kind of like for a lot of people out there, it's a no-brainer. Like people are not thrilled with the driving experience. Now, you have another slide that I don't have in this presentation of Charlton Heston in Omega Man, where he's driving, and I make up him saying at the bottom, you'll get the steering wheel away from me when you pry it out of my cold, dead hands. Because that's the perception of the U.S. outside the U.S., that we will never relinquish control, of the car. I think there's some middle ground there, but I think there's probably more interest in autonomy than some people think. But there are some architectural implications. So some of the things that might annoy, say, Europeans, for example, is you need automatic transmission for a self-driving car. And electronic steering, and you're probably going to need, as I said, a driver monitor. So then the question is, are we ready for the ultimate driving machine becoming the ultimate driven machine? Okay. So connectivity and architecture to sort of sew up some of the issues. Will the self-driving car be connected? Volvo says yes. I was at a conference last week, and Volvo has 100 self-driving cars driving around Gothenburg, Sweden. And they say, of course, they're cloud connected. And I said, why? The Google car is just running on sensors. We assumed that it would have to have connectivity. Okay. I think the issue is it doesn't have to be connected. It's an important distinction to make. Displays are coming in, resolution is increasing, driving processing power demand, driving interest in Intel, Qualcomm, NVIDIA. Multiple use displays are contributing to convergence of multi-use cameras and safety and infotainment applications, creating opportunity for virtual machines sharing the processing power in the car. Again, my vision, not everybody agrees with me. So we have spirited arguments about this. This is what the connected car of the future will be, architecturally speaking. So we expect there to be a smartphone connection and an embedded connection and kind of a gateway with a smart antenna. So in conclusion, so if you have any questions, I have some time to field them. Cameras are driving safety system adoption in cars. Cameras are opening doors to multiple connected use, reuse scenarios in the car. So that camera feed that may be helping to avoid a collision may also be used to enhance the navigation experience, for example. Driver monitoring is an emerging opportunity, so it's still early days, but we believe it's going to be a significant opportunity, particularly from the standpoint of the UI, the HMI implications of gesture control, and also credentialing the driver, identifying who the driver is at the time. Mobileye dominates this market, but doors and minds are very much open to alternatives. And as I indicated, there's a vast ecosystem emerging, and it's more than just the cameras, it's all the software and enabling ECUs. So, thank you for your time.